Good evening and welcome back. And another week of talking technical ahead of us. And I want to kick off with some requests, and I'm happy that we've got some new requests and even some new viewers. That's interesting. But it looks like they find us on all different platforms except for Twitter and Facebook and WhatsApp, whatever you can call that. Can you believe it? 20 years or 15 years ago, we did not even know some of these names. What you talking? But let's kick off. And my first request is, and I'm not going to mention the person's name. Let's call it's Mr. Elon Musk asked about Twitter. But you know what? If you think about it, he came in this week and he decided to buy some 9% of this company, and that just shows you what can happen if some of these big players comes in and they just buy a part of the company. He's, I think, one of the richest men in the world. And luckily he's coming from South Africa, but I think he maybe forgot about South Africa by now. But let's look at the chart. Now, Mr. Musk, I think what you're seeing here is that you're seeing a massive gap here. Now, first of all, I think you must not buy more shares now, because what usually happens with a gap like this is it's sometimes closed. So for our other viewers, maybe we must just wait for this gap to close. Now, this gap is between, and remember this is a weekly chart, this gap is between 46.86 and 40.96. So the best is, if you want to believe that Mr. Musk did the right thing, maybe wait for this gap to close, because we're sitting two minds now. The one is it a fundamental gap, this one, or is it just an emotional gap that everybody just jumped in and bought the shares? Now, I think Mr. Musk bought them around these levels of around $30. I don't think he bought them when this gap opened. So that was when the news broke. So for me personally, I will say let's rather wait for this gap to close. But on the other hand, if you think about it, Twitter saw an ugly sell-off a while back. It comes all the way from almost $80. And it went as low as about $30. And then I think Mr. Musk came in here right at the bottom to buy it. Now, if you look at this chart, and I see a lot of the technical charts on the technology companies, looks like that. It's almost like they go back to test those 2020 levels. But for me, technically, I think the chart must only go above 59.42 before I can get excited. And why will I get excited then? Because then you will see what I'm going to show you now. You will see that there is a beautiful descending channel here. Now, a descending channel is usually a positive channel, and it needs to break above that resistance line. If it can break above that line, yes, then it can go all the way back to maybe $90. I will say, if you are a viewer of the program, and if you believe in windows and you believe that gaps close either today or tomorrow or sometime in future, it's maybe time to wait for this gap to close and then buy it with a stop loss, and there's your stop loss of 31.30, and then if it breaks this 59 level, then you'll be happy. But unfortunately, I think Mr. Musk, he did his buy already, and he probably bought it much lower than you do, so I will not just rush in to buy at the moment. Let us look for the Barnes Group for Jay. Jay asked about the Barnes Group. Now, Jay, if I look at this chart, what I don't like about it, it's got all this momentum to the downside. Let's maybe just show you here. And sometimes we run through the charts like in a quick fashion. But if you look at this chart, just look at it. This is a weekly chart. And if you look at the trend here, what do we see? The trend is clearly to the downside. Now, only when this trend line, that resistance line, can turn into a support, I think the momentum can swing to the upside. For the moment, okay, I think just sit on your hands. I know everybody believes that the markets can go to all-time high again. For me personally, I just see lower highs there. There's even a little bit of a double top. So if you do want to preempt that resistance line at the top that I just showed you, I will wait for this at least to turn into a support. And that is, there it is, at $42.01. Then I think it will give me a proper buying signal only after the selling took place. And then where's my stop loss? My stop loss will be the low at 36.33. And where can we go to? 48.02. Big line is that resistance line, and that resistance line sits at $50.01. Above 15.01, yes, the chart will change completely. But at the moment, I'm a little bit nervous, but you wanted a buying level, but I'm going to show you here why I'm still nervous on the chart. Can you see what I'm seeing here? There is another resistance line, and that can take the share even lower. This is what we call a symmetrical triangle. Now, a symmetrical triangle can either break to the upside or to the downside. And in this case, what do we see? We see that this symmetrical triangle can actually surprise you and break to the downside. So yes, there's my first little point I showed you, but stick to that stop loss because we don't want to get caught off guard here. We had this request before, and I don't think it was from Leon, but it was from somebody else. And I actually showed this chart, and this is a weekly chart. And what do we see here? We see this massive rally. We see this lamp pull formation, and then suddenly we see loss of momentum. Now, Leon, if I look at this chart, that's what's worrying me, and I want to show you here. I mean, this chart is testing now a very important support line. Now, one of two things are going to happen. Either this support line is going to be proven as a proper support, and it will turn around here and the chart will actually go up. And the reason why I'm saying that, because in the past, and I'm going to use that line now just to show you where you can buy. In the past, every time that it got to this line, look what happened. It rallied above it. Now, I'm a little bit nervous if this breaks down. And that's why I will say I will wait for this little horizontal support line, resistance line to turn into a support, because then I will know that the investors use this line as a place to buy. Remember, I just heard that the Americans say they are looking at a possible recession. Now, if a recession comes about in America, the companies like Ford and some of the other companies that sells goods to the normal, you can say Joseph, then you can have a problem. But on the other hand, I mean, we know by now that the Fed Reserve can probably come in and help. But above 1692, it will trigger a buying signal for me, because then I will say, yes, it bounced off this line. Where's my stop loss? My stop loss will be, there you are, at 1583. And if it bounces above that, use that tight stop loss. I think it's just to play safe. And my targets to the top will be 1744, 1818, 1910, 1984, and even maybe as high as 2162. Well, there you are, Steve. Cello asked about Unilever. Now, Unilever is one of those big conglomerates. I know that we buy goods in South Africa, and some of the big companies that house a lot of brand names is Tiger Brands. So when you go to any shop, you'll probably buy a product from Tiger Brands. But on the other hand, Unilever is one of those companies as well. If you go to any big store in South Africa, somewhere behind the scenes, Unilever's got a finger in the pie. Maybe they've got the brand name or the product. So I'm just telling you, this is one of the this is one of the big companies in the world that you can look at here. And I mean, if we look at Unilever's chart here, let's just take it a little bit back. Now, this is one of the companies that that if you buy it for the long term, most people will say you will just never sell this company. You will just buy it and you will just keep it. But I'm under a little bit of a different perspective here. Let's just look at it. What I don't like about it, Cello, is look at this. There's your big support line. All right, what happened? This support line turned into a resistance. That is a negative. There I've got a high. I've got a lower high, I've got another lower high, and what do I see here? I actually want to zoom it out for you. If you use this line, what do we see here? We see an attempt of the share price to break above this resistance line and change it back into a support, but it came back. So I will probably say that little movement there, you will probably see as a technical goodbye kiss, and that is negative. Now, a technical goodbye kiss sometimes tells you that the share tried, it failed, and it came back. Now, it can either fell further, it can maybe consolidate around these levels. So for me, it's quite simple, Selim. Although it is a company, although you maybe want to buy it for the long term with a 5-year or a 10-year view, nothing can keep this share back and hold it back so that it doesn't go maybe to the level of 2017, that was $37.76. It can go even lower, $30.70. And I always say to my clients, if you want to buy a company and you don't want to wait for the technicals, because a lot of people will say, Frans, you look at the technicals, but if you like the company fundamentally, just go in and buy it and hold on to it. So this is a show for a technical investor. So I will say, if you want to buy it and you just say, Frans, but I just want it, then buy it because you can sit on it. But I will say to you one thing, don't put all your money in the basket. Just say, listen, I've got maybe 10,000 Rand. I want to invest maybe 1,000 Rand into the share. Then buy 1,000 and then you've got 9,000 Rand left. You can always invest again. And that's the important rule. When you buy a share against all technicals or against all fundamentals and you like the company and you like the management, then you just go in and you buy a little bit and you just hang on to the share. And if you see you're wrong, you just sell out. But if you do buy above 46.49, make use of a stop loss of 43.72. Unfortunately, we're out of time and we will chat again.